Today is Thursday, September 25th. We'll tell you about the deadly shooting at an ICE facility in Texas and the heightened security now ordered nationwide. Also, a likely deal set to be signed today that could put an end to the possible TikTok ban. Plus, what to know about the new Walk of Fame at the White House, Jimmy Kimmel's record-breaking ratings, and what it takes to live to 117 years old. Those stories and even more news to know next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Well, we start today with another public targeted killing in the U.S. This time it was an Immigrations and Customs Enforcement facility in Dallas, Texas. Authorities say a gunman with a rifle was perched on a nearby roof when he opened fire. One migrant was killed in a transport van. 2 others were hurt, and as of this morning, they're in critical condition. President Trump called this the latest instance of politically motivated violence incited by left-wing Democrats. Authorities say it's still not clear exactly what motivated this shooter. But FBI Director Kash Patel posted a photo on social media that showed a bullet found at the scene with the words anti-ICE written on it. Authorities say the shooter took his own life, so an exact motive may never be known. No ICE agents were hurt. In response, the Homeland Security Department ordered more security at ICE facilities all over the country. For the first time in nearly 60 years, a Syrian leader addressed the United Nations General Assembly. It was an incredible turnaround, especially for the new president, Ahmad al-Shara, who used to be a rebel leader once affiliated with al-Qaeda. He's actually still officially designated as a terrorist by the U.S. and the UN. During his speech, he outlined steps his government has taken to rebuild. He also called for talks with Israel, which has launched hundreds of airstrikes in Syria ever since al-Shara took over. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says those talks are happening now. Also at the UN yesterday, global leaders heard from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He told members the world is in, quote, the most destructive arms race in human history, since weapons are, quote, evolving faster than our ability to defend ourselves. So with that, he asked for more military aid and more punishments against Russia. As Zelensky put it, if Russian President Vladimir Putin is not stopped now, he'll keep driving the war wider and deeper. Elsewhere at the General Assembly, Iran's president says his country is not trying to get nuclear weapons, and China promised to lower its greenhouse gas emissions by at least 7% over the next 10 years. And that's pretty significant since China is the world's largest carbon polluter. This is the first time the Chinese government has set a tangible target for lowering emissions. And it comes just as the U.S. is rolling back on its commitments. Today at the UN, world leaders are set to discuss disease prevention and mental health, as well as artificial intelligence and more. Today, President Trump is expected to sign a deal to keep TikTok running in the U.S. And senior White House officials have apparently told several news outlets the deal would comply with the law that Congress passed last year. Remember, that law says TikTok's Chinese parent company, ByteDance, would need to sell TikTok to U.S.-based owners or effectively be banned in America. And for a while, ByteDance resisted since it did not want to sell. Well, now reports say the two sides agreed that TikTok's U.S. operations would be run by a new joint venture company. The TikTok algorithm could be leased instead of sold, but China-based ByteDance would hold less than 20% of the stock. It will reportedly be controlled by an American investor group led by Andreessen Horowitz, Silver Lake, and Oracle. President Trump has said the group will also include business moguls like Michael Dell and Rupert Murdoch. And it will be up to Oracle to protect American user data. For the 170 million American TikTok users, they won't have to re-download the app, and it should keep working with TikTok outside of the country. But the deal could still require certain approvals before it's fully finalized. We expect to hear more information about this deal later today. Jimmy Kimmel's return to late night after a suspension was lifted ended up being the show's highest ratings in a decade. About 6.3 million people watched Jimmy Kimmel Live on Tuesday night. And that's about triple its average ratings. And that's even though about a quarter of ABC stations in the U.S. were not airing it. It also doesn't include viewers who streamed the show. Disney says another 26 million people watched Kimmel's monologue on social media. As we told you yesterday, Kimmel addressed the controversial joke he made about the man accused of killing conservative activist Charlie Kirk. He used a mix of emotion and humor to explain himself, thank his supporters, and criticize what he sees as a crackdown on free speech. Kimmel has since gotten a lot of praise across the entertainment industry, like from iconic radio host Howard Stern, who said Kimmel hit the right tone and handled the pressure of representing free speech effectively. But Kimmel has also faced more backlash from many of Charlie Kirk's allies, who say the late-night host is exploiting Kirk's death for political purposes. They want a real apology. Meanwhile, both Sinclair and Nexstar say they'll keep preempting Jimmy Kimmel Live on their ABC stations for the foreseeable future. Anyone who lives in one of those markets would have to watch online if they want to see it. More news still coming up, but first, a break to talk about our sponsor. I've been impressed with OneSkin. From their face and eye products to their SPF, everything feels luxurious. But more importantly, it's rooted in science. Their latest innovation is OS1 Hair, a scalp serum that uses their patented peptide to target aging cells directly. I kind of think of it like skincare, but for my scalp. I want to do what I can for my hair to be as healthy and strong as possible for as long as possible. The serum itself is super lightweight, easy to apply, and doesn't affect how I style my hair. And the results are impressive. In a clinical study, participants saw, on average, a 40% increase in hair density after 6 months. And in another study, most participants said they noticed new growth in even less time. It's a drug-free, prescription-free way to give your hair the same science-backed care as your skin. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. And by focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. And for a limited time, you can try OneSkin with 15% off using the code NEWSWORTHY at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with the code NEWSWORTHY. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support our show and tell them we sent you. Now back to the news. The White House unveiled the Presidential Walk of Fame this week just outside the Oval Office. It features portraits of American presidents, except former President Biden. Instead, there's a framed photo of an auto pen writing Biden's signature. Of course, that's a reference to President Trump's accusation that the former president wasn't really the one making decisions by the end of his term, something Biden says is not true. Either way, it's not the first time Trump has taken down images of people he's disagreed with. Over the summer, he removed a portrait of former First Lady and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton from the White House. Then he moved portraits of former President Obama and both former President Bush's to a less prominent position. This week, just about a mile away on the National Mall, an anonymous group of artists added a piece of artwork as a way of trolling President Trump. The 12-foot-tall statue depicts him frolicking with and holding hands with sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. It's titled Best Friends Forever. Based on the permit given to the artist, the plan was for it to be on display until Sunday night. But the National Park Service removed the statue yesterday, saying it was too large. So far, no comment from the White House. Oklahoma is now working to become the first state to put a chapter of Turning Point USA on every high school campus. As we've told you, Turning Point is the conservative youth group Charlie Kirk co-founded and led before his assassination. And now the state superintendent there in Oklahoma says it needs to be in all schools to resist what he called radical leftists who push woke indoctrination of children. Since Turning Point USA emphasizes Christian teachings, some Democratic lawmakers have raised concerns about violating separation of church and state. And some educators are also against the idea, saying politically driven organizations should not be forced upon kids if they're not the ones who want it on campus. But a growing number of teenagers do have an interest in Turning Point USA. In fact, since Kirk's death, the organization has seen a flood of donations and chapter requests as it works to keep organizing youth Republican voters. Many conservatives have promised to keep funding and supporting the organization. Other right-wing pundits like Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Glenn Beck, and more have promised to help complete Charlie Kirk's college tour. It has 11 campus dates set already over the next 2 months. Sexually transmitted disease rates are falling in the U.S. That's according to the latest government data the CDC put out yesterday. There is one exception, though. Syphilis in newborns is still rising. Back in 2012, only about 300 cases were reported, and last year there were nearly 4,000. That's a concern, since syphilis can lead to lifelong health problems for newborns and can even be deadly. But one recent CDC study found only 80% of pregnant women are getting screened for syphilis, and many public health experts say that rate needs to improve so infections can be treated before a baby is born. Again, though, most other STDs are becoming less common in adults, and the CDC says there's a lot behind that trend. For example, better awareness, new at-home STI tests, and a general decline in young people having new partners. Researchers are working to figure out exactly what it takes to live to 117 years old. And they're doing so with the help of Maria Brañas Morera. She was the world's oldest living person before she died last summer in Spain. Near the end of her life, she asked a genetic researcher to study her. That researcher came out with a new study yesterday to explain how Brañas Morera lived so long. And the answer, in part, is that she took good care of herself. She followed a Mediterranean diet, did not smoke or drink, walked an hour a day until she was in her 80s, and played the piano until about 5 years ago. And also, she had good genes. Researchers say she had genetic variants that have been reported to protect against common risk factors like high cholesterol, dementia, heart disease, and cancer. Still, geneticists are reminding people this study was limited to just one test subject, not a large, well-controlled group. Other studies have found links between longevity and education and income levels, among other things. So, of course, even if you try to live like Brañas Morera and happen to have similar genetic variants, nothing is guaranteed. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Thing to Know Thursday. But first, this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. We all have those moments where we turn to random people for advice, right? The hairdresser or barista or even a stranger in the bathroom. Sometimes it's fun, but they're not always the right person to help us work through life's challenges. For me, actually talking with a therapist has made all the difference. I've always been impressed with how mine seems to know just when to listen, when to agree, and when to push me beyond my comfort zone. So if you're not sure where to start, but you're interested in therapy, BetterHelp makes finding the right match easy. With over 30,000 licensed therapists, they've helped more than 5 million people worldwide. So just fill out a quick questionnaire and they'll connect you with someone who fits your needs. And if it's not the right match, you can switch therapists anytime at no extra cost. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. So find the one with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/newsworthy. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/newsworthy. Well, now back to Thing to Know Thursday. It's that time of year where people all over the world get to cast their votes in a pretty unique election. We're talking about Fat Bear Week, when bears in Alaska go up against each other in a competition of plumpness and success for winter hibernation. And this year, the bears are back, bigger and fatter than ever, thanks to an ample supply of salmon. The largest male brown bears can weigh up to 1,200 pounds. But these bears aren't stepping on the scale, so you can really vote for whoever you want. Their prize is international recognition and a good start to the winter off-season. People from more than 100 countries have already been watching the bears in action from live webcams. If you want to check them out for yourself, we have posted a link in today's episode notes. Voting ends next Tuesday. Thank you so much for listening today and for making us part of your daily routine. You can further support our work and get access to ad-free episodes by becoming a Newsworthy Insider. Start your free trial at thenewsworthy.com/insider, and Wondery Plus subscribers can listen to episodes of the Newsworthy ad-free in the Wondery app. We'll catch you up on more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.